How's it going? My name is Michael. I'm the Director of Technology at BostonHacks. And today I'm going to give you a 10-15 minute walkthrough of how to make a quick, simple, kind of fun Hangman game in Python. The reason why BostonHacks decided to make this is that many of you may be in high school, studying computer science on your own, or have some sort of other like minimal understanding of computer science, but don't really know how to make anything fun or that cool with it. So hopefully I'm going to try to show you guys how easy it is to kind of take these concepts you might have learned in the classroom or in your free time and apply that to like a kind of cool project. So I'll show you what we're going to make today. I'll run it right here. So the game will ask us what our name is, or tell it. And right here we can see the letters that we've guessed so far, and then we can see what the word looks like to us. So obviously it's all blank because we haven't guessed it yet. So I'll guess a letter. I'll guess A. So A was in the word. It's been added to the list. Boom. It's Hangman if you've ever seen it before. So I'll finish this game. Is that a J? Okay. I think I know what the word is. I think it's Jack. Awesome. I won. Cool. So we're gonna go ahead and make this right now. So I have my idle open right here. I suggest you open yours and you follow along. But if you just want to watch the video, I'm going to post the code in the description of the video so you guys can just download it and run it on your own if you want to look at it in your free time. So I'll go to recent and open this up. Perfect. Okay. So I've already kind of sketched out what we need to do to make this game work. So I'm just going to stop you right here. So to get through this video, you're going to have to know what a class is in Python, as well as be able to do some of the more intricate things of Python, like list comprehension, loops, and things like that. So if those things are like topics that are foreign to you, I'll leave some links in the description that you can go to read up on these things, and then you guys can come back to the video once you understand. So like if you're looking at this right now and you don't understand any of it, pause it, go do some readings, and then come back. With that said, our Hangman game needs a few things. It needs a player, obviously, right? So when I am the player, we need to keep track of things like what letters have I guessed, have I gotten the word right yet, how many mistakes have I made, things like that. Things that are more important to the general game would be things like what word am I trying to guess, as well as the methods to actually like operate through the game, such as like checking the word, checking the letter, taking off a life from the user, things like that. And then we just have this function down here that we play game, and this is kind of like our main driver. So we're going to fill all this in, and then we'll call these functions in our play game method down here. So let's start from the top. So what does a player need to play Hangman? Well, I think it'd be cool if the player had a name. So we'll start with that, using that self syntax that hopefully you've seen either before in previous Python coursework, or maybe you just read up on it a few minutes ago. So we need to keep track of the mistakes a user makes. So I'm just going to hardcode that to 0. That's the first value, because at the beginning the player has made no mistakes. We need to keep track of the total mistakes a user is allowed to make. So this is kind of like the amount of lives you get, right? So like in Hangman, you only get like a certain amount of guesses, and after you've used too many guesses, you lose. So I think 4 is a fair number, but again, you can make it what you'd like at home. We'll want to keep track of the letters that the user has guessed, and we'll keep those in a list. So hopefully most of you guys know what a list is in Python. If not, again, just a quick Google will throw you in. And then we'll have it called one more attribute called user picks, which is also an array, and this is what the user sees, right? So like if I guess, so at the beginning of the game, right, I don't have any of the words correctly, so it's gonna be all empty. But as I start getting letters correctly, we'll populate this so the user can tell where the letters that they've correctly guessed belong in the word. And this is all that a player should really need, I think, at least for this very basic Hangman version that we're making today. So let's look more at the game. So for the game, obviously, we need to have a word, right, that the user is trying to guess. So I think one way to do this is so that we don't know what the word is, to make an array of possible words. So I'm just going to add a few in here. That should be good. And then we also have to have, of course, what the actual answer is. So that's what this import random is for us. So we're going to use that random library to randomly select the word that the user is going to be wanting to guess. So that's random.choice is self.words. If this looks weird, don't worry about it. You can just Google Python random and learn a lot about like the methods and functions that are tied with it. And lastly, we have the player that we're for now set to none, but we'll change this to the actual player object during our driver down here. And this looks like good in terms of like the attributes that a game needs. So moving on, we want to. So if a user decides to be bold and decides to check to see if they found the right word, we want to validate that. So this is actually probably the shortest function we'll write today. It just will return whatever the guess was and see if that is equal to self.answer, right? Where answer is the word that the user is trying to guess, and guess is this parameter that the user has passed in that represents their guess. Checking to see if an individual letter has been properly, to see if a letter is in a word is a little bit more complicated, because we need to make sure that the letter is placed in the right place. Right, we're going to update it to the user, and we want to make sure they know that not only is A in the word, but A is also like the second character. So we'll start this by seeing if the user has guessed the letter before. So if guess is in self.player.letters guessed, which is that array that we initiated up here, we want to tell them that they've already picked it. You've already guessed this letter. Great. And we're going to return their user picks. I will explain this more in like half a second, but basically we just want to make sure, obviously if you've guessed A, that you don't guess A, like again. Great. So let's say that they guess it and it actually is in the answer. So we'll write this code. So if guess is in self.answer, we want to go ahead and do some loops. So I'll go ahead and set this up. It's for I in range in the length of self.answer. And we actually want to do the list version of answer because we want to look at individual elements inside the answer. So again, this is just saying convert self.answer to a list. So each character will become its own index. We'll take the length of that, and we're going to iterate through its range. And what we want to do here is say if the answer I is equal to the guess, i.e. the user guessed it, right, and it was in the word. We already know that because of this. So now we found the exact place where that letter appears. Or if the player has previously already guessed it. So in this case, if this is not equal to null, or to the empty string. Right, so they've already guessed it, or they just now guessed it. We will go ahead and add it to user picks. Self.answer of I. Great. And then after this for loop, we'll want to add the currently guessed word to our letters guessed. And then we'll also sort it just to make things easier to read for our users. Wonderful. And even if this isn't the case, right, where if they guess it and it's not in self-that answer, we still want to add it to our guess list, and we still want to sort it. Because again, even if they guess the wrong letter, we don't want the user to guess it again. So I know this code is kind of dense, so I'm going to explain it one more time from top to bottom. So if they already guessed the word, we tell them that they've already guessed it, and we return back the same set of user picks that they have. If yes is in the answer, we're going to iterate through the answer, and we're going to look for the spot where guess is equal to the answer. And if that's a spot, then that's the spot where the user will get to see the character form in this output array. And then we add the letter guessed. We add the letter that was guessed to guess, and resort the array. And we should also be returning again self.player.userPicks. And we'll do that down here as well. The reason we're going to do this, for making more sense, we're going to rewrite the driver, but basically we're going to compare this to what it is now as opposed to what it was before we called check letter. And if there has been no updates made to this, that means the user guessed the letter that was certainly not in the word, and that's how we'll know that it's time to use our remove a life function. So let's go ahead and work on that remove a life function. So what we'll do is we have this attribute for player called mistakes that we defined up above, and we'll just go ahead and increase that by 1. And if self.player.mistakes is greater than or equal to 1, or sorry, greater than or equal to self.player.total allowed mistakes, I believe is what we call total mistakes allowed, that means they've lost, because they've exceeded the amount of mistakes they're allowed to make. So we'll print a nice little game over, you're out of lives. And then we'll add another print statement saying the word was self.answer. So that way they know what the word was and they can feel kind of silly about not being able to get it. Great. And we'll return true to indicate to our driver that the game should now end because they ran out of lives. If this isn't the case, then we'll just return false. And this will tell the driver that yes, they made a mistake, but they're below this threshold, so they're allowed to keep playing the game. One last method for our game class, and then we can start writing our driver. This is print nice. This is something you don't really have to write, but we're going to write it because it's going to make the experience better for our user. So first thing, we're going to make a little temporary variable. That's just going to be an empty string. And we're going to iterate through what we're currently presenting our user, which is self.player.userPicks. So for I range self.player.userPicks. So if we find a empty spot, that means they haven't found the word yet. So we will add a underscore and some spaces to our temp. Otherwise, if it's not an empty, that means they've actually found a letter there, and we're just going to add the word, or the letter, excuse me. Great, and we'll return temp. So anytime we want to print out the current status of the word to the user, we're going to use this function because it will make things easier for us to read. Great. So I think that's all we need for this part. And I think we're ready to start writing the main driver that kind of ties everything together here. So let's do that. So as we said at the beginning, we want the user's name. So we're making a new variable called name, and we're set to equal to the input where we'll ask the user for the name. Hello, welcome to our game. What is your name? A little space. Great. We'll then go ahead and make a new game object, which again we defined up here that we just wrote all the code for. And we will set game.player not to none, but to a new player with that name input. Make sure this is set up appropriately. Boom. Great. And then game.player.userPicks. So again, this is what the user sees. We're going to use some list comprehension, like we mentioned that we would at the start of the video, for x in game.answer. So this is going to make a new list with all empty quotes for every spot that's in the answer. Great. So now we'll print to the user line when they're ready to start the game. We've chosen the word plus, we'll put in their name to make it more personal. Game.player.name plus let us begin. And we're going to add this \n here just to make a new line, which helps make things more readable for our users. Great, so we're making good progress. So we made the game, and we've made the player, and we have a word. So now it's time for the user to start trying to guess that word. And this action of the user guessing the word is going to continue essentially until they either die or until they get the word right. So in this case, it's appropriate to use a while true loop, which literally means that this block of code that we're about to write inside this indentation is going to go forever until we either hit a return statement or a break statement. But in our case, it will be a return. So you can view this loop as like a one turn. So every time we do this loop, it's like a new turn for the user. So at the beginning of every turn, it would be a good idea to let the user know what letters they've guessed so far. So we'll print that out to them, like so, game.player.lettersGuessed. And then we'll do the new line character as well to help with the readability. And we also want them to know what the word looks like right now with their information. Current status of the word is game.printNice. \n. Great. Oops, what am I missing? I'm missing the quote. Awesome. Okay, so on every move, there's two things we can do, right? We can either guess the word or try to guess another letter. So we need to record what the user wants to do. So I'm going to save into a variable called type of move and make it an input. Say, would you like to guess the word 1 or guess a letter 2? Awesome. So if type of move equals 1, and remember this is a string 1, not an integer, because we're doing this off of the input, then we'll have to do some stuff. Return a guess. That pseudocode, we'll fix it in a second. Else if type of, or elif rather, sorry, wrong language, if type of move is equal to 2, then we need to return a letter guess. This is a word guess. And then else, we'll just tell them to pick it, try again. Please type in a 1 or 2. Smiley face. Okay, great. So let's start with guessing if the word is right. So if they want to guess what the word is right, we need to record what that guess is. So guess equals input. What do you think the word is? Okay, and they will type it in. And what we'll do is we'll set current pics, or sorry, not yet, because we just want to see if they guessed the word is correct or not. So we're just going to do if game.check word guess, which we already wrote up here. So this is all kind of coming together now, which is nice. And then, so if this returns a true value, that means they picked the right word and they've won. Guessed the correct word, you win. Awesome. And we'll return because the game is over. So we'll just exit the function. If they don't get it right, then we'll call if game.remove a life. So remove a life returns true or false, right? So if it returns true, that means they've made too many mistakes and the game is over. If it's false, then nothing will happen except that they will just lose a life, like we wrote up here. And this is the logic to see if they try to guess a word. If they want to guess a letter, we have to start the same way, so we need to record what that guess is. What do you think a letter in the word is? Is that proper English? Maybe. Okay. So now we'll take their current pics, so what they are in this current moment, and save them again using list comprehension into a variable. So x for x in game.player.user pics. So this is what the word looks like right now, right? So we'll make another variable called new user pics, and we'll save this into the response of check letter guess. Okay, so current pics is what the pics were before we tried to see if their guess was right, and new user pics is what they had so far after we checked to see if their letter was right. So now we want to compare the two. So if these guys are equal, that means they guessed a word, that wasn't in, they guessed a letter that was not in the word. So if that's the case, we go through this same process of seeing, do we have to remove a life? Or we do have to remove a life, but since we're removing a life, will it end the game? And if it does, we'll return. Else, these guys are not equal. That means they did it. They picked a word that was, they picked a letter that was in the word. So we'll tell them that that letter is in the word. And we'll do the new line again for readability. Perfect. Okay. And this looks pretty good. So let's run this once. We probably made a typo or an error somewhere. And then once this works, I'll walk you through this code one more time, top to bottom, and we'll go from there. So I'll go to run module. Invalid syntax, awesome. And I assume that is because I missed a parenthesis. I'm sure you guys noticed that and were telling me to fix it. Let's try it again. Perfect. Awesome. So the game is going. We have this code right here, just play game on its own line to start the game. So awesome. My name is Michael, and they've chosen the word for us, so we can begin. We haven't guessed anything, and I don't have anything showing yet because I haven't made a good guess yet. So I'll guess a letter, and I'm going to guess C. And something broke. Game object has no attribute player user pics. And this was online. This was in our check letter function. I told you this was the most complicated one. And that is right here. This is self.player. And this is user pics. Gotta hurry up there. Okay, perfect. Let's try it again. Nice little debugging. Okay, we got it. Looks like we got a different word this time, so that's good. The random is working. I think there's an A in it. Game object has an attribute to players. That is right there. Boom. Again, the best way to test our code is just to keep running it until it stops breaking. I'll guess a letter. I'm gonna guess A. Nice. Okay, that worked. So what if I guess Z? I'm sorry. I want to type in 2 to guess a letter, and I'm going to search for Z. Good. So we're just trying to get all these stress testings in. Again, that should be player, not players. I wonder how many more times I've made that mistake. Alright, so I'll guess the letter. A. Awesome. I will guess another letter. I'll guess Z. Good. Okay. So I want to make sure that we lost a life here. So it doesn't look like, I think we lost a life, but we never really wrote any feedback to the user to let them know that they did lose a life. So let's add that. Just write in here, print wrong, you lost a life. You now have comma self.player.mistakes self.player.total mistakes allowed minus this, right? Left. Cool. Let's do this again. I feel good about this one, guys. I think the letter is Z. Great. I lost life. I have 3 left, which is good because I started with 4. So if I guess letter that's in the word, guessed A. Oh no. We might lose here. Is it a B? It is. So I think this is Boston. So I'm gonna go and guess the word. I guess Boston. I guessed the right word and I won. Awesome. So this all looks good to me. So let's talk about this code one more time from top to bottom and see how this all kind of came together. So we have our player class right here. And one of the attributes of game is a player class, or a player object rather. And inside that player object, we can check of the name of the player, the mistakes they've made, the mistakes they're allowed to make, all the letters they've guessed, and user picks, which is how we're representing the current word. That looks great. Inside the game class, we have words. These are like the possible words that could show up to the user. One of the words that they might have to guess, right? So you guys can play with this on your own. And then we use self.answer to choose randomly one of the words for the user to try to guess, like their target word. And like I said, this is the player. So we have a super simple check word function where if the user tries to guess what the word is, we just see if the guess is equal to what the current answer is. Pretty straightforward. If this evaluates to true, then the whole thing evaluates to true. Else, it'll come to false. In terms of checking the letter, we see if the guess has already been made by the player, and if it has, we let them know. If it's in the word, we iterate through the answer, and we find exactly where the letter occurs in the answer. So that way we can update the user so they know where the character is in the word. And then we add it to their letters guessed list. And even if they don't get the letter correct, we still want to add it to their guess. So that's what happens there. Removed in life increments their mistake counter by 1. If it gets to the point where the mistakes are greater than the mistakes they're allowed to make, then they lose. Otherwise, they just lose the life. We also have this nice little print nice function that takes care of this, essentially, converting the list of user picks into a nice string that looks a lot cleaner and easier to read for the user. Great. And then that all comes together in play game. So we ask the user for their name, which we use to make the player that's part of the game That's defined right here. And then we also set up all the blank spaces for their guesses. Great. So at the beginning of every turn, we let the user know what they've guessed so far and what the current word looks like. And then we give them the choice if they want to guess for the word or if they want to guess a letter. If they decide to guess for the word, we call our check word function, and if that's true, then they win, and else they'll lose a life and possibly end the game. If they decide that they want to guess a letter, we keep track of what the current word looks like, and we compare it to what the word looks like after they do their guess. If they look the same, then they've made a mistake and they lose a life and possibly the game ends. Otherwise, they get the feedback that the letter is in the word and they continue. And if they try to do either of these things, neither of those things, then we ask them to please type in 1 or 2 and play by our rules. So yeah, this is a quick little video of how to make Hangman in Python 3. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are in high school, hopefully seniors possibly, and you're going to come to college next year, we totally encourage you to come to BostonHacks. It is one of the Northeast's premier hackathons. We have a great time every fall. It's totally free. You come, you get free stuff, you meet companies, you learn some computer science stuff. It's always a good time. And yeah, if anyone wants us to make more of these videos, if you have questions about any of the code I wrote, leave a comment or reach out to one of our emails or social media sites, and someone will get back to you. Awesome. Thank you.